We're going to pick a time for a work session when we go over the 2021 schedule, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Town of Haymarket Planning Commission for Monday, December 21, 2020. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Mason.
Here.
Cottle.
Here.
Hallett.
Aye.
Benyang.
Did we lose him?
Hold on. He's here and Carell. Alexander, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, so Alexander's here. Ayush, can you hear us? Yes, they're both here.
All right, let's stand, pledge allegiance to the flag, remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. All right, first up is citizens' time. If there's a citizen who'd like to address the planning commission, please come up, state your name and address. We would love to hear your comments. All right, seeing none, we will close citizens' time. Minute approval. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting?
Yep, close citizens' time too early.
Oh, we can come back at the end.
So moved.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second? Excuse me, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right, moving on, agenda items. All right, Emily, you're up.
Okay. Just 1 second. Okay, so we are on packet page 6 of the agenda. The SUP 2020-002 for 30 residential condominiums at 14600 Washington Street, QBE, and it was submitted by Haymarket Properties Group. So I have included in here an updated staff report with the summary and the items that occurred at the town council meeting. At this time, I am recommending a denial of the special use permit for the following reasons. The applicant has failed to address the concerns and comments from August 2020. The residents of Haymarket have voiced their concerns and requests for denial for the last 6 months. And lastly, the designated land for the SUP and the GDP has been rejected for a proper amendment by the town council. There is a complete resolution of denial by the town council and our next attachment as you go past my staff report. If you have any questions, I'm sure myself or our council liaison will be happy to answer those regarding this. Any questions?
So what was the council's rationale?
With respect to the rezoning,
Yes, sir.
it was a rather lengthy one. Hang on a second, let me pull it back up.
Can pass that up?
Put it in a nutshell.
It's the council.
Oh, you got it. Good, because I can't read it here. This isn't in my words, so I'll have to. because the proffers, as originally construed and adopted, included a commitment to maintain and make available for recreational field use 4.51 acres adjacent to the buildings, and this particular amendment would essentially take that down to 0 as it was written. And I gotta get to the stuff that's relevant. Because the Parks and Recs Department is still making use of them and has a desire to continue making use of them, and because the applicant had not fully complied with the conditions of the proffers as adopted in 2013, I believe, and the proffer amendment did not favor the existing use and character of the area, and was not suitable use of the property for the various uses, and did not favor the current and future requirements of the town for a variety of reasons regarding population and economic studies, and because of transportation concerns and requirements for parks, playgrounds, recreation areas, and other public services, conservation of natural resources, that sort of thing, and the conservation of properties and their values and encouragement of most appropriate land use throughout the town was not enabled by the application, and the requirement for that area to remain public use and recreational use in the comp plan, the town council resolved to deny the request for the proffer amendment.
Did the town council ever consult the town's attorney on that?
The
Because
town
that was-
attorney drafted the resolution as drafted, yes.
I understand he probably did, but was that completely vetted? Because that was the big sticking issue before.
I would assume that since he drafted the resolution, he vetted the grounds.
But
He did
we-
not have any issues with it.
But do we know that for a fact?
Yes.
Well, you just said he probably did. Either he did or he didn't.
He was given a draft. He modified the draft. The resolution was adopted. There we go. And he raised no issues during the consideration or the vote.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the special use application?
So if this is denied, does this preclude them from coming back around?
So tonight, you guys are making a recommendation of approval or denial to the town council. The town council then will hear the application and they will make their decision. At that point, if it were to be denied, then there is a certain amount of time in which you can make another application. However, for that specific land, that area, they would need to amend the proffers. They could come back and they could request a special use permit for a different portion of the property that does not have that proffer on it.
So it's basically the proffer was the main sticking point?
That is correct.
The town council has not considered the SUP at this point. All they've considered is the proffer amendment.
I guess if that's the case, why is all this other language in the resolution recommending denial. If it's just the proffer, there's a lot of other things in here as well.
Those were other issues. If you're talking about the draft for tonight, those were other issues that were raised during our previous meetings.
Chairman, are you referring to,
I'm referring to this resolution recommending denial of SUP 2020-002. If the proffer was the main reason for the denial or disapproval by the town council, why is all this other language in here?
Because this is for the SUP, not for the proffer. The only thing considered by the town council was the proffer amendment, which is separate and apart from the SUP. The proffer is a component, the proffer is required, well, in my view at least, the proffer is required to enable the SUP, but the SUP is not required for the proffer amendment.
No, I understand that. It's just, it was my understanding that the town was going to get with the applicant, circle back around to us and present us with update. That never happened.
no, sir. Myself and the town manager met with the applicant, I believe it was the week prior to Thanksgiving, so the week of, I believe it was November 18th, or that week we met with the applicant. We had a discussion with the outstanding comments and concerns that we had. We did make some suggestions there of things that could be discussed or addressed, and there was no follow-up and no updates made to the documents at that point. I know in previous meetings, the Planning Commission had asked some questions, or we had made note of certain areas that were of concern, some regarding the parking, some regarding the buffers or landscaping, just in general wanting some additional information on the GDP. Those items at the time were not updated or addressed, so that is some of the information that was included here in this draft resolution, kind of calling out that those items were not updated.
Mr. Leek, I'm going to recognize you because obviously you took your time to come out tonight, so I give you 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. Commissioners, appreciate you all coming out this evening. As you know, under Section 15.2-2285B of the Virginia Code, the Planning Commission has 100 days to review our request for the SUP. It is our position, and we believe law, that the SUP has the effect of amending the zoning for this project. The Planning Commission did not act within the 100 days, and as a result, we believe the Planning Commission should have sent this SUP application to the Town Council with a recommendation of approval. We know that you are objecting to the
Mr. Chair, I object. This is a matter that's been discussed by the town's attorney and the applicant's attorney. That is a legal issue and a legal argument between the two of them. The town attorney feels distinctly different and has a distinctly different position with respect to that, and that is irrelevant to this particular circumstance.
Okay, go ahead. You have 4 minutes.
We know that you're objecting to the 100-day requirement in holding this hearing, which we believe is improper. However, because we are here, we are provisionally and without prejudice to our position offering to provide information statements to support our position. To answer any questions you all have, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions, or for any clarification between town staff and ourselves, I'd be more than happy to clarify anything.
I guess the only thing I have, Mr. Lee, did you provide any updates the week prior to Thanksgiving?
Yes, sir. So we had a productive meeting on the 19th of November, At that time, Mr. Kuhn did inform and recognize that he failed to go with your all's movement to provide us with our notice of August 3rd for our cutoff to provide additional information so we can meet a work session. At that time, we clarified with Ms. Lockhart in 3 separate emails the amount of information that she was looking for. There were 6 bullet points that she was asking for. One was if possible. We addressed 5 of those 6. The 6th out of that 6 was in regards to parking on Blight Drive. In regards to the parking on Blight Drive, we stated that our parking engineer states that the width of the road is 28 feet, which allows for parking on one side of the road, and that we were going to be going to VDOT for approval of parallel parking on Blight Drive. The other item was, if possible, was provide elevations of the grading of the multi-use building in regard to underground parking. That was not provided, as Ms. Lockhart confirmed. It was if possible. At that time, in an August 31st email, I believe, from Ms. Lockhart, it stated that there was a bunch of additional information that she was now looking for, even though we addressed the items that she stated she was looking for. And at that time, we did not respond. We were trying to get a work session with the Planning Commission for this, and one was never scheduled. So I believe that I did answer all the questions that Ms. Lockhart outlined in the 3 emails between July and August in regards to those 7 points. Again, 6 of them required, 1 of them if possible.
Chairman, when I stated that no updates were provided, I was referencing the August 31st comments. These comments were not addressed. These were comments that stemmed out of the previous updates that were given regarding the underground parking for the structure in question. We wanted to clarify how this was going to be done. It was previously stated that 66 parking spaces would fit underneath of the building, thus allowing for all of the residential parking to be accommodated. So when updates were provided in July or early August timeframe, these were questions that stemmed off of it. These were ones that were shared with the Planning Commission, and no updates were further given after August 31st. So to clarify, that is what I was referencing.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Okay, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, sir. So out of those additional items that Ms. Lockhart was referencing, 1A through D had to deal with the elevations that were at first not required. E is very simple, has to deal with an elevator. F has to deal with how are we going to mitigate the noise levels of an underground parking garage. G talks about lighting plan to determine appropriate lighting in the parking garage. No buffering or landscape shown on the proposed mixed-use residential building. We state that we are going to meet the zoning requirements, landscape and buffer requirements. Residential parking space are not shown as restricted or permitted parking. We did not feel that was necessary. Elevations not provided for the mixed-use residential building. Again, Ms. Lockhart said if that was possible, not a requirement. Number 5, will residents have private entry points to the building, private elevator, private lobby? If so, demonstrate location on the GDP. Again, this is a GDP. We have not got architectural drawings back yet. This is, again, a GDP is a general development plan. It's in very early stages of this, and to draft up architectural drawings like that are going to be north of $50,000 just for renderings. So we'd like to understand if this is something that the town wants prior to showing you exactly where we are going to enter and exit the building. Number 7 is in regards to Blight Drive parallel parking. I talked about that earlier. Number 6 is parking spaces across from the site are utilized for loading zones for 1/3 of the day. This is very common in small towns with loading requirements due to the mere fact that you have semi-tractor trailers trying to get in and out. The city of Manassas does this. Manassas Park does this. It's very common. And then number 9 is a parking tabulation, so where we have a discrepancy between us and the town. But Ms. Lockhart did state in our November 19th meeting that she does understand that the town is protected by the town's zoning ordinance in regards to parking requirements. And if we were not able to completely park something, some structure would have to be reduced in size, or the use would have to be reduced one way or the other.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leek. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm just reading through here. Like, just the last whereas on the bottom, the proposed may adversely affect the use or values of surrounding properties and structures. I mean, that's very subjective. The fourth whereas on the second page, as a matter of good zoning, would not serve the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. I mean, I just think there's a lot of things in here that I think are debatable. And I keep coming back to two things: the proffer and the fact that the applicant is saying they address things, we as the town, it just seems like there's been no meeting of the minds as far as what is established, what has transpired. And I just find that dumbfounding, that regardless of where people fall out on this, is how come we can't establish a clear, linear path of what's taken place? That's what I don't understand, and I think that's a fair question.
Do you want me to go ahead, or?
No, I want you to answer that, please.
I think it's going to continue to be a back and forth, he said, she said. You know, we, as staff, we asked for certain comments to be addressed. We had conversations with Parks and Rec. We worked with the town council. You know, I've sat here, I've worked with you guys on comments and concerns. I've shared with you what I have presented to the applicant. And, you know, we have emails, we have timelines. And, you know, there's certain things in the conversations that I think are being miscommunicated. I do not feel like we were updated. I don't feel like I got an updated GDP or an updated SUP application or new materials. So that is what I presented to you tonight, that I did not receive those items from August 31st. It was stated that they asked for a work session. You know, in our practice, if we don't get any updates, we do not provide a work session to discuss them. So at that time, we did not have any new information to discuss. So, you know, we spoke with myself, and the town manager spoke about it, and we did not see it necessary to have that work session because there was no new information provided. As for this resolution, this is one that our council liaison has drafted. I am sure there are certain areas of it that we can all discuss if it is necessary, if it is not necessary, what would make everybody feel comfortable in passing it or not. So that's kind of where I stand. I've presented everything. I have my report here of what was provided. So that's where I stand. Okay.
I mean, isn't some of this stuff like buffers, landscaping, some of this on like a final site plan?
Some of it is addressed on a final site plan. It does not mean it can't be addressed in a generalized development plan, though.
I understand, but we've approved plenty of SUPs, preliminary SUPs, without all the final details. It just seems like they're being held to a standard we haven't held other people to.
Okay. I mean, there are certainly ones we can go line by line here if you guys would like and read through them and mark some off. If that would make everybody more comfortable. Okay. Alexander and Ayush, we just sent you the draft resolution via email.
I just think before we vote on this resolution, there's some things in here just need to be cleaned up.
Am I able to make a comment?
Okay. Okay, I didn't see Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Weir.
Hang on one second, Alexander.
I'm actually going to defend staff on this one. Emily's provided an extensive timeline and, quite frankly, innumerable updates on where we stand with this. There have been multiple requests for additional data. By and large, they've been left unfulfilled. With respect to GDP, site plan, what information you get now, what information you get later. This is an SUP, which I would suggest you need a higher standard of information at the front end to make an informed decision on whether or not the SUP is acceptable or not. This is simply a draft resolution that I put together based on the planner's comments, comments from residents, and my own thoughts. It's a rather detailed resolution, and it's detailed for a reason. If you're simply approving something or approving something with conditions, you nearly need to cite the approval or the conditions upon which the approval is being granted. With a denial, it's my personal feeling that you have to be much more detailed to fulfill the expectations of this board in terms of a recommendation to the town council. It's no different than well, substantively it's different, but in form it's no different than the resolution that was adopted with respect to the proffer amendment. That we haven't held people to this standard in the past, I can't speak to that. At least I can't speak to that since 2015. I can tell you that prior to 2015, they were held to this standard. Between 2015 and the present, I don't know. And quite frankly, it's our charge to hold them to an appropriate standard and do the appropriate due diligence and get everything ironed out ahead of time, which is why, in my view, this detailed resolution is required, at least in this particular instance.
Alexander, do you want to go ahead, Benyai?
I think Mr. Ware addressed some of the same comments. But, as he indicated, I've also reviewed the resolution and denying the proper amendment. And I see some similarities. And in terms of holding the applicant to a higher standard, maybe it's about time that the town starts holding applicants to a higher standard, right? I don't think there is anything wrong with, starting now or in this case, right? But as long as, based on what I see here, as long as we're not indicating things that are not accurate, not true, I don't have a problem with any of the statements or what is in the resolution that has been put together.
I'm all for holding people to high standards, but I'm for holding people to standards that are in writing that are currently on the books. And there's clearly things in here, if you go look at the application process for SUPs, some of this is in final site plan review. It's not part of the SUP.
I think that the final site plan is not referring to this SUP. This is, based on my knowledge, and it's in relation to site plan, I believe, when the property was rezoned, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying there aren't valid points in here, but, I mean, there's a lot of shalls and mays in here too, and that's up to opinion. Like, again, adversely affect values of surrounding properties and structures. I mean, who's the final arbiter on that? May conflict at the top of the second page with existing traffic in neighborhood. I mean, all I'm saying is applicants that come before this planning commission, it needs to be clearly outlined what they need to do. And I still come back to the same thing. We have an applicant standing here saying that he has met it. We have our side, being the town, saying he hasn't. I mean, I just don't feel good about this whole process. I want this project to be up or down based on its merits, not people's personal opinion. When I read this, there's a lot of opinion in here. And if you boil it all down to that big time where we spoke before, it all came down to the proffer. And we asked the attorney, at least I asked for clarification. I never got clarification on that. That was one of the things we specifically, as the Planning Commission, asked for. Well, maybe I missed it, but
He's provided significant clarification to the town council, as indicated by his most recent bill.
all right, other discussion.
Without the proffer, how can the application move forward? Doesn't the proffer need to go through?
I mean, I would agree with you without the proffer, without that being cleared out, I would agree 100%. But if the proffer is the main item, then why all this other stuff? That makes no sense. This is almost like a case being built against this rather than here's the main central issue. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, without the proffer being approved, how how can we approve the new application for the condos? Doesn't the new application need the proffer to go through?
And their current layout of the property, I would say yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that?
This is, give me a second.
Yes, sir.
But if they were to move that, then I would say, in other words, are we saying that we don't agree with 30 residential condos? Or we don't agree with where they're wanting to put them? Does that make sense? Because if we're saying we don't agree with 30 residential condos because of density, then we've approved a couple projects that are pretty dense.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I would like to just add to that point that you just brought up. I don't think the planning commission ever adequately discussed the density or the 30 residential condominiums. We were discussing how it relates to the proffer amendment in the area. We discussed how the parking was going to be handled. We discussed some of the other issues, the entrances, the exits, the traffic generation. So where we did talk about other dense projects, I do not recall that we talked about the actual number of condos at that area. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Can you make a comment?
sure.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm new to this, right? I'm not sure why we would be discussing anything in relation to whether something is or is not acceptable in terms of the SUP when we know that the proffer amendment was denied. Thus, the applicant cannot develop the 4.51 acre in accordance with their SUP and GDP. So I'm just curious as to why we need to have such discussions at this point.
Well, I would agree with you on the proffer, but my point is, why all these other whereases? If the central issue is the proffer, just a simple whereas the proffer, period. Go ahead, Mr. Lee. You want to comment to that?
Thank you, Chairman. And I apologize, Commissioner, I don't know your last name. But to answer your question and how I would interpret it, sir, in 2017, we had an approved site plan with an egress, ingress onto Blight Drive through what would be considered the proffer area. The interpretation that I have with this SUP is that an SUP does not have it doesn't have a sunset clause unless one is put on it. And two, it goes into motion when the town council votes upon it. So the way that I look at it and the way that I, as well as our legal team, interprets line 11 of the current proffer, where it states, however, for after 1 year, and to summarize it for you, after 1 year of our current lease ending, we need to market the property. If after 1 year the property, no one wants to go ahead and move forward with the property to lease it with a commercial reasonable lease, then at that time we have the right to develop the property. That starts on line 11 of the current proffer. So the way that we are interpreting it is that we do have the ability at some point. When is that point? That is the unknown, but at some point it is able to be developed as it states starting at line 11 within the current proffer. So the reason why we're still sitting here, in my opinion, to talk about this is this something that the town council is okay with at some point happening down the road? Is it something that, yes, currently it would not be able to be acted upon, but at the same time we would have to go through a site plan phase, we would have to go outside, get outside agency comments from VDOT, Prince William County Service Authority, the fire department, everyone to be able to look at these different site plans. Then at that time, we may be 18 months, 2 years down, 3 years, 4 years down the road when this proffer may be gone. And at that point, if that proffer is gone, then the SUP could be acted upon at that time. And so
Thank
to
you.
state again, we did encroach into the proper area already through a 2017 site plan that was approved by the town planning commission.
Mr. Weir.
Couple of things. First off, the 2017 site plan has never been perfected. Again, the applicant has failed over 3 years to provide the material to perfect the 2017 site plan. The final site plan is not perfected and thus, in my view, not current for purposes of this discussion. With respect to why there is more material in this resolution than simply the proffers, it's because there's more to be considered than simply the proffer. We're tasked with reviewing the SUP, reviewing its negative impacts, its positive impacts, how it is or isn't incompatible with surrounding uses. There's a multi-pronged test here, and yes, a lot of it is subjective. It's subjective for us, it's subjective for the town council. I would suggest that a minimum standard of data has not been provided at this point with respect to parking, right-of-way issues, the 2013 proffer compliance. There are a variety of things, and that's why the resolution as drafted is as long as it is. If we grant an SUP, you're granting a legislative approval to a plan, and you're giving them an entitlement that you could perfect at a later date, at site plan, or at some other time, but I think you need to get the bare minimum behind you at the SUP stage so you can understand what that site plan will ultimately look like. I've seen this happen in many jurisdictions where they approve an SUP, and the GDP for the SUP shows for example, an egress point at one particular point on a road, and they come back at site plan and they have to amend everything because they couldn't make it work. And it has created significant problems over the years for quite a number of SUPs that I've followed. I don't like leaving things open-ended. I like having them nailed down and buttoned down from the get-go. And if there are those that don't feel that way and don't want to button it down at this point, well, that's fine. Vote against any resolution that's made that requires that. But I think it's our responsibility to do that on the front end and not on the back end.
Well, if you deny one of these, doesn't it deny the whole SUP?
The whole SUP, there's a resolution to deny the application for the SUP. There are a number of reasons that I drafted it the way I drafted it. Quite frankly, because the applicant has already threatened us with litigation, so I want everything in there. Just to cover our position and to cover the town's liabilities.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ware, the resolution that we are reviewing this evening, has it been blessed or reviewed by the town council?
No, it has not.
Okay. In comparison to the resolution in denial of the proffer amendment, are there any omissions or additions to, or are they basically, I'm trying to figure out if they're very similar?
They are similar in some respects, but they're different in many because the proffer did not. There are things in the SUP that were not considered as part of the proffer amendment. Two separate and distinct applications with a separate and distinct list of specifics.
I keep going back. Whereas the proffer include a commitment to maintain, make available for recreational field use approximately 4.51 acres adjacent to the existing building as illustrated in attachment to the proffers, quote, the ball fields. This commitment was to continue so long for public or private partners willing to enter into a commercially reasonable form of lease agreement at a fair market price, subject to termination after 1 year of non-use and notice to the town for such non-use. If we're saying that they don't have the ability to build the proposed project because of this proffer, I don't see why all these other whereases, and it doesn't make any sense.
I'm being thorough.
You're being very subjective on this. Can you say, what is your basis for saying values of surrounding properties may be adversely affected?
I said may, not shall, and that seems to be the personal take of some sitting behind this dais, and many standing before it, giving both verbal and written testimony. And you're right, it is a subjective call, but not everything is a objective call. Sometimes you have to make a subjective call.
I do see that same wording, same whereas, and the town council resolution, by the way.
I will say I have one vote. I don't support this resolution as written. There's too much opinion in here mixed in with fact.
Let me ask a question. I'm new to this as well. Do the additional whereases add additional stipulations on the property owner, or is it just for documentation purposes? I'm trying to understand your objection to the additional whereases because it's going to request him to do more to try to address those whereases, or it's just not clear enough?
Well, great question. Some of these whereases would be addressed in a final site plan. Things like buffers, landscaping, designated parking spaces, loading zones. So my point is we need to stick to what is the real issue here.
So that issue can be addressed or not addressed? Is that why you're saying that?
In my opinion, having been part of this process, the main sticking point, the big central sticking point is, does the applicant have the ability at this point in time to remove the proffer of 4.51 acres and relocate the ball fields to build the proposed condos in the area of which on their site plan, proposed site plan? If that makes sense.
I think it does.
It's been so long, I kind of need a refresher a little bit on the actual application, just because it's been, what, 2-3 months?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
I definitely don't feel comfortable denying or approving anything tonight, just because I don't know enough about the actual suit.
I'm definitely in that boat. I'm new to this. It's the first I've heard of the application as well.
Is this something that the commission would like to defer to the January meeting?
I would like, I mean, obviously, it's going to be one vote per commissioner, but I think this needs to be rewritten with all of us having a chance to look at this and come together, so we're not wasting time up here and really whittle this thing down, or what is the main reason if we do deny SUP 2020-002, at least the applicant will at least have something, okay, here's the central issues, and how can we potentially resolve those and come back? That's what I'm saying.
One of the issues with postponing, I think I was having a hard time hearing some of the things being said, but I believe the applicant did raise the issue of not having, needing to take action sooner than later, right? Is that something that we want to do? We want to postpone this even further, I don't know if it's something that we want to do.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, did you have plans to talk anything else about this?
So I'd be more than happy to sit down, whether you all wanted to do a work session or me to come in at the next meeting and do another full presentation to give the folks who want a refresher on the application itself. And if that is something that the Planning Commission wants, I'd be more than happy to come at the next meeting and do that.
Yeah. If I may make a comment.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Like I indicated, there is quite a bit of similarity between the resolution adopted by the town council and this resolution. So in my case, based on the fact that the town attorney having reviewed that resolution, I don't have, this is my personal opinion, I don't have an issue with including statements that were incorporated in that resolution. And again, those were reviewed and blessed by the town attorney. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for us to do a comparison between this resolution and the resolution that was adopted, but I think that's something that we need to do at a certain point.
And thank you, appreciate your time. I think we've discussed this enough tonight. We just need to go around and the options would be to vote on this as written, correct, Emily?
Yes.
Or,
Somebody has to move it.
I understand that, or we defer it until next meeting, correct?
Correct.
With it being rewritten and all of us having a chance to look at it. My whole point in saying that, it's kind of captain obvious, if you will, probably where the vote would go, up or down. But my point is, does the applicant not have the right to know exactly what needs to be done to even have a chance to build this? As opposed to all these other things that, even according to our own ordinances now, they don't have a responsibility, excuse me, to answer at this particular time.
If that's the way the commission would like it to be written, That's fine. I would just ask that you guys let us know what needs to be struck so that we can do that and have a draft sent. Let us know if you want the council being town attorney to have his blessing on it, if you want him here at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
That way there's no, well, he said this, she said this.
What was that? Did we say yes to the town council being present next meeting? Or?
Yes, sir. So we did. So I will talk with our town manager, and I will ensure that that is something we can go ahead and get scheduled.
In the meantime, if it's okay with the chairman, we have the town council review this resolution in advance prior to the meeting.
Yes. Is that all right with you, Chairman? To have our town attorney review this document and also provide any comments or changes as necessary?
Mr. Alexander, did he say town council or town attorney? I thought he said town council.
Town attorney,
Okay.
town attorney.
Okay. I don't have a problem him looking at due to the legalities, but at the same time, he hasn't sat in on all the discussion. It's one thing to say the document's legal or illegal, but, I mean, why as a planning commission, what are the main 2 or 3 reasons that we would recommend denial?
Mr. Chairman.
And,
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Lake, I think
Yes, sir.
we're kind of at a stop point.
Yes, sir.
We can also have our town attorney review the discussions in the meetings. He's done that in the past where he goes back and watches our videos. He can then read through this resolution and make his recommendations if anything should be struck or anything should be added. Again, if you tell me which ones you want removed, I can give him the original draft and then I can give him the version 2 with those items removed.
Well, I want to be careful too, because when you have attorneys going back and looking at things, I mean, they're not doing it for free. And it's the townspeople's monies that are being spent here. So I want to be careful that we're not, racking up large sums of monies.
Mr. Chairman, I can save the town a lot of money. This is the first time you all are talking about this SUP. If you recall correctly, in July, we weren't here because we tabled the SUP. In August, it wasn't on your agenda. In September, you didn't take action on it because you took action on the proffer. Same thing in October, same thing in November. So this is actually the first time we are even discussing the SUP between both yourselves and me as an applicant. Outside of that, that would probably save your town attorney a lot of money from going back and reviewing the different videos because we never had
That's kinda where I
a
was
discussion.
getting at.
I think we need, yes, Mr. Weir.
If you guys want to defer it, I mean, I'll go along with it. But I think we need to consider what our job task is. And our job task is to review this special use application and either approve or deny it based on its, and I quote, design, location, construction, method of operations, special characteristics, and other aspects satisfying a variety of standards regarding location, comp plan, general purpose, intent, impact on surrounding uses and values, health, safety, and welfare, pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Town staff has gone to great lengths to get additional data. That data has not been provided over a period of months. So if the data hasn't been provided over a period of months, and there are questions from our planning staff with respect to things like traffic, congestion, the parks, and that sort of thing, then in my view, the application fails on its face. The applicant has had plenty of opportunity to address the issues. To come in here and say that it hasn't had the opportunity to address those issues is not true, because those issues should be handled principally through staff at the front end. That has not happened, at least to my knowledge. I don't think there's enough information here to make a reasoned evaluation and recommend approval. In fact, I think there's enough information here to recommend denial. I mean, if you want to send this to the town attorney, that's certainly within your right. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not even going to oppose it in any way. It's going to cost us some more money, but so be it. But he is very well of the circumstances of this application, very well aware of the circumstances of this application, and because of correspondence between our attorney and the applicant's attorney, I would suggest that he knows all of the issues of which we speak tonight. And he has been provided significant updates by staff, I believe, including a timeline and all of the outstanding issues that have not been addressed. Personally, I would prefer just to get, dispose of this tonight, get it off the agenda, and move on to other things. But if you want to move it and defer it to the 18th of January, I'm not going to argue that.
I would like to see it deferred to the 18th of January. I would like to see every commissioner have a specified time to go through, either support or strike the whereases they deem aren't necessary. Have the town staff compile it, present to us prior to our next meeting, a resolution recommending denial of the SUP. So when we come here, we've all had a chance to look at it. I mean, who prior to tonight has seen this recommending for denial?
Why would you? It's based on an analysis of the application. You've either read the SUP or you haven't.
I mean, I've read the SUP.
Then you either agree or you don't. I'll move it. I don't have any
I
real
mean, I
issue with
agree
that.
at this point that the proffer is the main sticking point.
But it's not the only one, in my view.
Well, but that's your view.
Yeah.
We all have a view, not just Mr. Weir have a view. Every commissioner carries equal weight in their view.
I get that, in which case I would move we defer further consideration of SUP 2020/002 until the January 18th, 2021 meeting of the Haymarket Planning Commission.
Do I have a second?
The January, okay, the regularly scheduled January meeting of the Haymarket Planning
Do
Commission.
we have a second?
I second that, Mr. Weir.
Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Weir,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Cottle,
Yes.
Hallett,
Yes.
Benyang,
Aye.
Corral. Ayush.
He is a delay. Ayush?
Aye.
He said aye.
I appreciate your all's time. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. All right, next order of business. Ma'am, you said McDonald's site plan. We're going
Yes.
to move past that.
We are going to defer that also to the January meeting. I prematurely put it on our agenda for tonight, thinking that they had submitted. This is an oversight on my part. I do apologize. We have them scheduled for the January Planning Commission meeting to bring back their second submission of their site plan.
Okay, and then the meeting schedule.
Yes, so meeting schedule, if you guys can all pull out your calendars. The reason we asked for it to be just January is because our meeting date falls on Martin Luther King Day in January, so that's the 18th. We are proposing to just move it to Tuesday, the 19th at 7 p.m. unless anybody has a conflict and would like to discuss a different date.
Does anybody have a conflict on the 19th?
Those joining us on Zoom, do you guys have a conflict on the 19th of January? It's a Tuesday.
I assume the same applies for George Washington's birthday?
Yes, that is correct, and they both stated it was good for them. And February as well.
All right, so what are we gonna do in January then?
Tuesday, January 19th,
No issues.
Okay.
and February will be February 16th.
And February is the 16th.
Are we gonna do a work session on the 19th to try to keep moving on this zoning text amendment?
Yes, I would like to, if everyone is available, to do the 6 PM work session. Is that good?
Works for me.
If I can ask, so the context would be added at that work section, some of the context that we're missing as new members, the
For
background
the-
issues, and for the work session will be about the
Zoning text.
Okay.
It'll be about the zoning text.
Okay.
If you have any questions regarding the application, you can set up a meeting with myself.
Okay.
You can set up a meeting with the town manager. You can set up a meeting, with other commissioners, not more than 2 in a meeting, but we're happy to all sit down and discuss it with you.
Sure. That's great. Thanks.
So we'll do a work session on January 19th at 6 for the,
According to the chairman, he wanted each planning commission member to review the current resolution, go through the comments, strikes, and so forth. But is there going to be a coordination in terms of,
That's what I was
reviewing
asking.
each other's comments and what have you, just like we did with the 6 o'clock session? What's the approach?
Did everybody hear that?
well, let's,
One second,
Let's come back.
Alexander.
so the work session will be on the 19th, that's for the zoning text amendment. Then we're having a regular meeting on the 19th at 7 PM.
That is correct.
Okay, what I would recommend on this resolution is that we set a date well in advance of the 19th to submit our comments, what we think needs to be struck from this document, and then you send it out, and then we have a chance to look at it prior to the next meeting. So if we're meeting on the 19th,
Typically, I send the agenda out on the Tuesday before, so if you're meeting on the 19th, then the agenda would go out on the 12th.
which would mean that the comments would have to be in way in advance of the 12th. So if the comments were in on the 5th, does that give you all time to compile them and then send it out in the agenda?
Yes.
I would recommend we have to have our comments, as it just pertains to this resolution, to Emily by the 5th. And you could either walk in and hand it to her, or it could be emailed, correct?
Yes.
Does anybody close the business on the 5th? Does anybody have a problem with that? No.
Everybody on Zoom, can you hear that okay?
I wasn't able to.
So can you submit your comments for the resolution by close of business on January 5th, either by email or hard copy? Myself and Kim will work together to compile that into a new draft resolution. We will submit it to the planning commissioners by the 8th. That way you have the weekend to review it, and it'll go into a packet on January 12th for the regular meeting.
If I may ask, how do we typically handle this type of situation? I mean, do we have a working group to discuss the various topics, or or is it just typically we sit down independently?
Typically, that's a great question. So typically, if I look at the agenda here, when the town manager gets down to like new business, like on Roman numeral 8, she will alert us to what's coming up, so we have an idea. And then the packet's mailed out for us a chance to look at. So when we come here, we're not wasting a lot of time discussing. Typically, that's how it works. So this, in my time serving on the planning commission, this is the first time we've ever done something with this type of document.
Given the fact that everybody seems to have pretty strong opinions on where they fall on some of these things, should we have a planning commission, have a work session to discuss these together?
I think, in my opinion, we've discussed it for the last hour, and I think if we go through and we each submit it, then I think it's going to be pretty clear, in my opinion. There will still be some differences, but the differences aren't going to be 20-some-odd whereases, maybe 8 or 9, or whatever the case may be, if that helps.
Yes, sir.
All right, so is everybody good with that timeline?
Perfect.
So as it stands, we submit our comments by close of business on Tuesday, January 5th. We will have the new resolution in our town email on Friday, the 8th. The packet will be mailed out on the 12th. We're going to meet for a work session at 6 to continue the zoning text amendment, and then at 7 o'clock, this resolution will be on our regularly scheduled agenda.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving to the next item. Is that all you wanted to cover on the 2020 meeting because of the holidays?
Is everybody else good with just maintaining our regular scheduled third Monday of the month?
I am.
Oh, you mean in March? Like moving forward from,
Right.
yeah,
Unless there's a
government holiday?
or
Okay.
something
Yeah, if something
that comes
crazy
up.
comes up, I'll get in touch with you guys. If for some reason there's a, snowstorm late in March, we'll go from there, but,
Do we know when Juneteenth is this year, since that's now a holiday? I haven't gotten my updated schedule from the,
yeah, that's the other thing. Sometimes the holiday schedule, very rarely, but this year it changed a lot. Yeah, it does not affect the meeting, is,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, so it's actually done like on the 4th of July and Veterans Day, where it's done on the,
I think it's the if it's a Saturday, it's the Friday.
but it's a date certain.
Voting holiday.
Yeah.
I didn't, shows how much I know.
Yeah, so otherwise, we're good on the 2021 schedule. Kim will go ahead and post that and have it on our website here shortly.
All right, and then we've already addressed item Roman numeral 7, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The only other new business I would just like to add, I'm still working with Van Meter. They're finalizing their comments from DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, regarding their review. We're in the final stages of that, so I'll keep you guys posted, but we are looking at having all of the outside agencies give their final approval here in the next month.
All right, Roman numeral 8, new business.
At this time, I don't have any new business. The only thing, and it's kind of also an ARB update, is we are working with Aldi. They're going to be going into the Food Lion space. They're going to take approximately half of it. We do not know who the second tenant is yet, but that's kind of our only new business for tonight.
Do we know the timeline on
They're,
Aldi?
they're currently working with the ARB on their signage and their other facade work, so they're hoping just as soon as after the new year, they get building permits to do a couple of the modifications they want, and then I think they would be coming in and fully open and operational sometime next year, probably second, third quarter.
Okay.
Definitely, if you want to give the ARB update, that would work as well. I was not feeling well, so I didn't attend the last meeting.
Okay.
All right, so then town council update.
You pretty much heard it with respect to the proffers, and I believe that's the only land use discussion we had.
Yes.
All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, I would like to afford Ms. Leonard the opportunity to speak for citizens' time, if she so desires.
Dottie Leonard, 14801 Washington Street. Thank you, Mr. Weir, Councilman Weir, Liaison Weir.
Just Bob.
Okay. I'm so old I can call you all by your first names if I know them. The new the new planning commissioner that I haven't met before. The only thing I would say to you regarding whereas a dog jumped over a fence means the dog jumped over that fence. Whereas the cat ran around the corner, the cat ran around the corner. I've been a planning commissioner in the past. I've been a council person. I've also served for 9 years on the Board of Equalization for Prince William County, where I chaired it for 3 years. And that's the board that people appeal their real estate taxes to. So when someone says, whereas it will cause people's property values to go down, that's someone's opinion. I'm also a realtor for 30 years. I know for a fact, having the growth that we have in this town, if it's done right, looks right, it doesn't take anybody's property values down. Anything that enhances this town is a blessing to this town, especially commercial property. Or now, Mr. Weir, I bet you're sorry you let me talk.
No, ma'am.
Do you understand what I'm trying to let you know? I appreciate, abundantly appreciate, that you're thinking before you just listen to a statement that was someone else's opinion. I have abundant respect for you, and I just met you tonight. And I've been here so long, 48 years in this town. The brick sidewalks were my idea. They didn't hurt anybody's property values. They increased them. I served on the board when the street lights were recommended. I only got a ton of opposition to the brick sidewalks. I was told by the mayor at the time, who's been a dear friend for life now, that he brought in a piece of brick veneer and gave it to me and said, this is for Dottie to set her coffee cup on because it's the only brick she's ever going to see in Haymarket. But look at our town. And we were falling down. I had people say, what are you trying to say? There's nothing there. There is something here, and I'm glad you're here because I can tell you care and you want to do what is the right thing. And I respect you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to shout. I wanted to clap. But I only did like this back there when you were saying, what's all this whereas about? I agree with you 100%. Your wisdom is extremely important on this body, and I'm thankful that you're there, because without that wisdom, all those whereases, you're right, they did go up to the council. He wrote it all. Mr. Weir wrote it all. He wrote the one for you, and he wrote the one that went up there. And he recommended everybody he said, I make a motion, and he had all these whereases. But the dog didn't jump over the fence, and the cat didn't run around the corner. But that was all his opinion. And when it went up there, then yes, it went up there, and his buddies up there voted it in. Doesn't mean it was right. I'm glad you're there too. I'm glad you're there too. God bless you all for being willing to serve. It's a thankless job, I know, because I've done it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Weir.
Oh, absolutely.
Have a Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas to all of you.
Christmas,
All
Dottie.
right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes.
All right, second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.